100 years ago, when I was working for Bob Knight, he was making a decision whether to go to New Mexico, and we were going to go with him. I happened to be in Las Vegas, and I went to every sports book trying to find a bet on Bob Knight going to New Mexico because I knew we weren't going to New Mexico. My next guest, Megan Payton, who, by the way's dad is the hottest coaching commodity, Sean Payton, has a podcast and involving Megan and Sean and finding out and trying to wager on where Sean was headed. Here's some video from Megan's podcast with her dad, Sean.
So since you don't know maybe where you're going, I'll tell you where Vegas has you going. And Vegas, by the way, typically pretty smart.
Stop.
We got a little graphic here. According to some sports book, let it be known that you can't technically bet on this on a lot of sites, but Cardinals have the shortest odds right now, plus 250. Then we've got the Rams at plus 400. So that means that Vegas thinks that you're going to end up at the Cardinals, most likely. Then they've got the Rams, then the Saints, the Colts, the Broncos, the Cowboys, and then the Chargers we're seeing at 10-1. What do you think of this graphic?
Yeah. Well, first off, in fairness, the bottom two shouldn't be on there. They have coaches and they're in the playoffs. So I understand. I understand the rumor mill and all of that. You're missing Carolina. All right, Vegas.
I know that. I was surprised by that.
If we're trying to be, if we're just trying to be complete here, and then the last box we're missing is Fox. You know, like what's the odds that he just, goes back to Fox and pays for Megan's wedding the next year? Just kind of put it on a credit card.
Megan joins us. I love the fact that you are handicapping your dad's next place with your dad, and you're doing it so serious. Like, hey, here's the odds. What are you doing?
Here we go.
Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me. No, that was a fun segment to do with him. My producer for the podcast, he found that graphic off of some site. I mean, as you know, this isn't showing up on FanDuel, DraftKings, or any of that. So it was hilarious to see what the actual fake odds were, and then to get him to talk about it. We had a fun time.
Let me ask you. All right, let's get right into it. Where would you put the odds? Let's say Fox and, whatever, Carolina, or not Carolina. I want him to come to the Colts, but what do I know? You got family in Indy. Let's break some news here, woman.
Dan, I'm sorry to be a letdown, but I'm finding out all the information on Twitter with everyone else. So me and my brother are in a group text, and we'll be like, oh, we saw this. What does this mean? I mean, he's a busy man. That's what it seems like right now. But I wish I had some insider info, because then we could find some, off-site betting site and make some money. Kidding, by the way, would not do that. But I really don't know, Dan. I hope that he goes somewhere, whether it's Fox or another team that he loves and feels like there's a great community there. And I'm excited to have either a team to root for or another pregame show to turn on.
How, I coached for a lot of years. I got fired at Bowling Green. It was so tough. We're getting beat. I know we can't win. I got everybody hurt and my kids are crying. You went through great times with your father. Did you ever go through bad times? I don't know. I don't have your dad's record here, but was there ever bad times when your dad was a head coach?
Well, of course, bad times is so relative. I think anyone that's an NFL fan or in the industry whatsoever, if you don't win the Super Bowl, sometimes that's considered a bad year. One team leaves happy at the end of the season. And of course, there are years whenever it's, worse than others. But ultimately, one positive for me growing up is that all I really ever knew from the time I was 10 was my dad with the Saints. So I know a lot of kids of coaches, they move around a lot throughout high school, and all of that's really what's important when you're 15 is where are my friends at? Where are my friends at? Luckily, he was with one team up from when I was 10 till now, and all the moves were before I was 10 years old. So I'd say, of course, there's ups and downs, but lots of fun memories.
When you're handicapping where your dad goes, because he's really good on TV, and TV is the greatest, easiest job in the history of the world. But it isn't like coaching. And the one thing I always said that you can't get anywhere else is winning. The feeling of winning. You know what I'm saying? And I'm guessing your dad had that so much. It's like a drug, right?
Absolutely. He said that many times. I've heard him on different shows. I've heard him on even my podcast, him talking to us. There's an adrenaline rush. There's an addiction that I'm sure comes with winning. Having never coached, I can't, specifically relate to that, but I know that he's the most driven person I've ever met. As much as he loves TV, I'm sure that there's always going to be a pull to being back in the industry of coaching.
Let's get serious here. You are a gambling expert, and I'm going to call you an expert because Wager Talk is a show that you have. And as my brother and all of my friends say, hey, dude, you got a show. Tell us what's going to happen. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, you got a show, All right, let's go. It is Joe Burrow against Patrick Mahomes. 3-0 is what Burrow is in Arrowhead or whatever the hell they call it. What are you thinking?
Dan, this has been such a hard one to handicap. Honestly, both of these games are hard to figure out. But first of all, with the Bengals Chiefs, I'm riding with the Bengals because Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense, they're so hot right now. 10 wins in a row. I really don't think that we're giving enough credit to Burrow and what they've done. I mean, 3 starting offensive linemen out last week. Who would have known? Joe Mixon rushed for over 100 yards. We're seeing Burrow being able to get the ball down the field. He's using many weapons. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. The list is without ending. And here's the thing, Dan. I think that obviously the whole storyline this week has been Patrick Mahomes, the ankle. How healthy is he going to look? How is he not going to look? Well, let's not forget that the Bengals have beat the Chiefs 3 times when Patrick Mahomes was healthy. If anything, this is just going to make it a little bit more difficult on Kansas City. I also have a couple player props in the betting industry that I'm looking at for that game. And one is running back Samaje Perine over 15.5 receiving yards. One thing we noticed with the pressure that was created from the Buffalo Bills defense last week with the offensive line having their backups in is that Joe Burrow is getting the ball out quick. So I'm expecting to see some quick passes, some short throws, and get the running backs involved in the receiving game. You could look at the Joe Mixon over on his receiving yards or Samaje Perine. I'm going to eye Perine because the Mixon under hit for his receiving yards last week, the over hit for Perine last week. And then you look at a Kansas City team that's not done well at stopping running backs in the passing game. They're 28th in the league. They allow a lot of yards to running backs in the passing game. So I'm looking at Samaje Perine to have a big game. I'm going to take over 15.5 receiving yards for him. And yes, I like the Bengals to come up and win.
Hey, thanks for watching Don't At Me with me, Dan Dakich. Make sure to like, subscribe, or click the notification bell for more of my beautiful face. Check out my full show to my right or watch this other video. See ya.